people have seen you at publisher forums, know that you got good taste in shoes. I mean, would you call yourself a sneaker fanatic or a sneaker hound?
Oh my, Gavin, you are really unawares about the kicks game. I'm a sneakerhead. A sneakerhead or a sneaker freak?
Well, a sneak freak. That actually makes a lot of sense now that I think about it. I'm sorry. What do you expect from some yuppie who wears boat shoes? Well, sneakers are actually a key part of the success of complex media, and actually, selling sneakers is probably a key part of its future. It's been mind-blowing seeing what Complex has done over the last several years since they made a huge digital push. The innovation just doesn't stop. In fact, right now, they've got a Complex Land show going on right now that we're going to chat a little bit about. They've really shown a path forward with revenue diversification for publishers everywhere. It's a huge honor to have CEO and founder Rich Antoniello on with us today to chat about a whole wide slew of things. I can't sum it up. We were chatting a little bit about sneakers, and we mentioned the fact that Complex, the first issue of that magazine that was 2003, right?
2002, May of 2002.
Well, we were curious. Well, back then, 18 years ago, 18 years ago, 18 pages of speakers, and but what was it about sneakers? What did you see? Did you have any idea that it would become the cultural?
It's not that it's about sneakers per se. I think the important thing is that when we launched as a magazine, and this is something the brand of Complex has not changed at all, is we realized that there was a ton of niche culture that was really influencing the mass more than ever before. Previously, basically, niches were on the outside of things. So things like hip hop culture, art, design, and sneakers were really the core tenets of what Complex the magazine was and Complex the brand is. So we just looked at that as something that was going to disproportionately influence youth culture going forward. And we wanted to be a part of bringing that to the masses and defining that as a category rather than just participating in it.
Well put. So, let's jump forward. We're going to jump a bit back and forward in time like this is some kind of episode of Doctor Who. But 2016, advertising makes up 98% of Complex's revenue. 2019, advertising makes up 48%. What on earth happened?
Well, it's not what happened, is that we made a massive decision actually at the end of 15, knowing that there was only so much, as advertising was getting commoditized, there was only so much we were going to be able to grow. Now, granted, by the way, the advertising portion in 2016, the total advertising dollars actually did grow in its totality as of 2019. So it's not like that got smaller, which made it easier to make that a smaller percentage. But what we did is we made choices to add on very premium dollars from the revenue diversification basis, because we own our audience and community and have a deep connection and are able to port them to other platforms, and also basically diversify the revenue against productization, IP development. Adding licensing and syndication were humongous opportunities for us, as well as everything from sneakers and hot sauce and product and e-commerce in general. So we were just very early on that. What you're seeing is a lot of publishers and a lot of brands talk about how they're going to move towards diversification. I think they're about four years too late, personally.
Right. 2019, diversification made up a lot of your revenue, right? What were some of the highlights for you? And
2019 was huge. We launched everything from multiple hot sauces to tons of new shows that basically were. And by the way, when we're talking about shows, we're not talking about just. We have a very nice, very large YouTube business and very large digital video business. We also have a ton of deals with people like Spectrum and Nessun and Hulu and Amazon and of course Netflix.
Aren't you on Pluto too?
We are, of course, on Pluto. Sorry, we can go on and on and on. We're everywhere, but The bigger deals, I mean, we have 16 seasons of shows on Netflix. I think that's more than all of our competitors put together. And you know, those are not something that you put together and slam together in 6 months. Those are years in development, not just the selling, but the development of those shows, and then being able to point an audience very effectively towards them. So those were some of the highlights in 2019 for us.
And
All right.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, so
Well-
then you take it, Gavin.
Well, first off, I see so many people in the comments, you know, chatting about their shoes now. So you really touched on something special there. But I just want a second to ask about.
Everybody should go watch Sneakerheads on Netflix. It's a fantastic show.
It's awesome.
It's our first foray into scripted, and I think we did pretty well for our first go round.
That's amazing. Yeah, because, you know, you see so many publishers when they're kind of trying to jump into connected TV and such, you know, they go with the reality television. It's kind of easier to do, but yeah, you guys have you're always kind of paving some new paths, and the licensing was extremely bold on that front. But can I ask real quick about hot sauce though?
Please.
Was hot one? All right. So, what's your favorite hot sauce at the moment? Because I can't do the sneakers, but I can talk hot sauce.
It's not even. It's our new hot product. We came out with hot nuggets. Basically, it's our hot honey. Can I tell you, it is unbelievable. First of all, with chicken and waffles, could be the best thing ever made in the world. Also, great finishing sauce on a lot of things. I like to cook. But that is probably my new favorite product. Our new collab with Reebok, where we came out with 3 sneakers, and plus everybody for the holidays, a great Hot Ones Truth or Dab the Game, unbelievable gift for the holidays for everybody. Sorry, had to get the shameless plug in there.
I get that, you know, and because you know, I feel like we're jumping around. There's so many great things I want to chat with you about, and we just have to jump right into, because the commerce opportunities. I mean, when did they first start popping up, and how did you jump on building your own products?
Well, again, I don't think it's jumping on from an exploitative basis. I think it's thinking about, do you have a deep, and this is the general sense, right? We always ask ourselves is do each of the brands and each of the individual IP, like the shows themselves, have big enough and deep enough of a connection, big enough from a scale perspective, but deep enough of a connection with the audience to be able to diversify that monetization. And, you know, Hot Ones is a tremendous show where, you know, we are, 13 seasons in 5 years, I believe. And that was one of the first big forays into product with that show, as, you know, as it caught fire, pardon the pun. We ended up really realizing that we were selling a lot of other people's hot sauces on Amazon and at retail. And what we did is we started integrating our own sauces into the 10 hot sauces in the show. And that has become a monster business for us. And, you know, that actually in and of itself has started and branching off its own brand extensions. So, you know, what we look at is not, oh my God, how do we think about what products to shove in? Is what we think about is, what is the audience coming to us for? How loyal are they? And what are they looking to us from a value perspective? And how do we add value to them, not just exploit them to sell them something? And I think that's a huge chasm between us and a lot of other people.
But, you know, there are a couple of different angles I want to go on there. But one, you know, like, to pull off a lot of the stuff you're doing, you got to have like a crazy good team. You got to have, and how do you, can you go a little bit into the org? Like, who's like coming to you with these ideas? How do you get them to really germinate?
Well, we're set up a little differently than I think a lot of other publishing companies, in that we have general managers who run each of our verticalized brands. So we have somebody, and when I say general manager, they run both the qualitative and the quantitative side. So previously, a lot of other companies are set up, here's your editorial, here's your content development, and then here's your business side. To me, I think that sets up too much friction and doesn't set it up for truly innovative thinking that is integrated across all aspects of all teams, which will always produce better results. So what we did is 3 years ago, we transitioned to a general manager position where they own the P&L and they are the brand lead from a content development perspective as well. So we have a lead for First We Feast, we have a lead for Complex, we have a lead for Pigeons and Planes, and we have a lead for Soul Collector. To me, I think that's a big part of why we are successful. Of course, the quality of these individuals, not just them, but our executive team, honestly, and even down to a lot of our people who are out there, you know, whether it's social posting or writing or doing the videos. I mean, it gives me the chance this challenging year. I would be remiss if I didn't say how proud I was of my entire team, top to bottom and bottom to top. We banded together like anything nothing I've ever seen before to really look at this challenge as an opportunity to reset our business. You know, how people are talking about how trends have changed. It's like, okay, what was going to take 5 years took, you know, it's now condensed into 6 months or a year. Well, our team and our company and our people and our staff looked at that as a challenge and literally said, okay, if that's the case, then that means there's a bigger opportunity than we think. We can look further out. And that was really how Complex Land was birthed. So, you know, I think that's the other thing. I know I said a lot there and I'm not trying to jump all over, but all of that is how that set up the talent, the ability for them to get massively creative, to have a deep understanding of for each of the brands as well, and their audience enables you to be very creative and be very ambitious as well.
Well, you mentioned Complex Land. I want to pull that one out a little bit. So pandemic came, I'm sure you had to rethink a lot of things, right? Because you usually do live events, a lot of live events. So Complex Land, can you tell us a little bit about it? I know it's like a virtual e-commerce expo type thing. Can you explain it?
Well, I mean, it's and I'm not trying to make fun, but I think it's a lot bigger than that. You know, we have this other little thing called Complex Con, which is basically one of the biggest events and shows where we had about 75,000 people come and experience all of the different cultures that we bring to you know, all the different communities, cultures, and verticals that we bring together in one place. We call it the Cultural Super Bowl. We were challenged in knowing that this was not going to happen this year. And we made the call very early on at the end of March, knowing that we were not going to be able to do ComplexCon this year in November. So what we were like, instead of just throwing our hands up and being disabled and paralyzed by the pandemic, we decided, okay, well, if we're going to be limited by the physical world, how do we really rethink the virtual world? And instead of just doing a Zoom, no offense, but instead of just doing a Zoom thing or whatever platform, we were like, how do we take it to the next level and create a consumer-first experience that reinvigorates, allows them to participate in all aspects of what ComplexCon did, only in a next level basis. So, you know, a little inspiration from the Travis Scott concert on Fortnite. And of course, in our true sense, rather than jumping on somebody else's platform, we have to be massively ambitious. So we were like, why don't we build our own? So basically, we built our own platform and brought in brands and allow consumers to build their own avatar and have their own virtual experience within this across all aspects. So we have our live shows, we have other shows, we have sponsors integrated, we have product drops, we have everything. And I mean, this is one of the best integrations across the board is we used to have food halls at ComplexCon with some very intricate, very interesting companies who built specific products for us, you know, special sandwiches, special pizzas. What we've done is activate in major markets and have somebody the ability, if you're on ComplexCon, ComplexLand.com, you can go in, order your food, and have people come and deliver it to you. So that we're still having all of the food companies participate, but just in a more, in a different way as well. So we're not, instead of letting this again, challenge us, we're looking at technology on how to level up and not solve for the problem, but create a completely new and different experience in and of itself.
You know, I think that's absolutely fascinating. And at the same time, I keep thinking about your kind of relationships with advertisers and the companies that are participating, and also how you actually kind of sell these products. And can I dive a little bit into your history before you started sales, before you started Complex? You were a sales guy at media companies, including the national sales director at National Geographic. How do you think the media seller mindset has changed for better or worse?
My real answer, not is for better or worse. I think it's not enough is the whole point. I've been doing this for too long. I started selling in 1995. Wow. I don't like saying that out loud too often, but the thing that I always loved and enjoyed was I only worked for brands I was exceptionally passionate about and had a lot of pride. And I never looked at our audience as the exclusive product. I looked at the words, and I was a magazine guy. So I looked at what the words did for our audience, the level of impact and influence. And I looked at that as the value exchange for the advertisers. It's what you would call a qualitative seller. Or a community-oriented seller. Only I was doing that a long time ago. And what I don't understand is how a lot of people, and I mean this on the buy side as well as the sell side, you can operate on a lowest common denominator basis and last click attribution, and a lot of that is going to change based on a lot of the challenges that you alluded to at the beginning of this. But my point is as a publisher and as a content creator and a brand, if you are not creating something completely differentiated and don't have a differentiated experience with your audience, you technically don't have an audience. You have flyby consumers. And to me, there's no value in that. So that's always been my stance. And I don't think the sell side, the buy side has evaluated companies aggressively enough. And I don't think the sell side has defended what is true premium quality versus just scale for scale's sake purposes. I think it's been a very lazy way of doing it. And I'm not saying it in a horribly negative sense. It's just that's the path of least resistance, right? And that is never a good solution.
No, I think that's extremely well put, because third-party cookies and the ease of buying audience has kind of stopped us from being creative.
And the very, very, very bad behaviors of a great deal of imposters that are out there that reverse engineer content in order to just take advantage of that situation. And then the buy side not enforcing the fact that they are just an imposter, but allowing that to be bought at the same level and the same volume. And then one begets the other. It becomes a bad self-fulfilling prophecy. I know that's not a very popular thing to say, but at the end of the day, it's just fact and reality.
I mean, the old term was the race to the bottom. So I guess the race to the bottom continues.
Yeah, and expands, unfortunately.
I personally, as age is coming on to me, I know about expanding bottoms. So, but I couldn't resist that. Lynn, what were you saying?
No, I was going to say definitely during the pandemic, that race to the bottom was, it was in high gear.
Well, look, I mean, it's interesting you bring that up. Like, what I think, just like the economy, just like every business as well, you're seeing a separation of the haves and the have-nots, right? All the pandemic did is exaggerate that and speed it up. And I think people who had audiences and just that were kind of exposed. People who really built communities, have connections, have the ability to make money or partner with a brand and an advertiser in different ways, rather than just some framed ads and different things along those lines. To me, that's where you're starting to see the haves and the have-nots. And I actually don't think that's the worst thing. I think some house cleaning is not the worst.
Well, Rich, you were talking about in the past, 95. Let's let's move along in your journey to 2007. You're at Complex. I was over at Vibe in like 2006. You know, we worked with bloggers, but you guys took a bold move. You built out a network with bloggers or influencers, so to speak, when other people were looking at those types of content plays as not real, right?
Right.
Not valuable. Can you tell us a little bit about why you made those choices, why you went in that direction when everyone else was like, nope, no blogs, right?
Well, I mean, there's a lot going on. You have to think back to really what was going on also in the digital space in 06, 07, right? There were really two ways to go. You were either a large scale portal like AOL or Yahoo, ironically, both owned by one of my half owners, and then, or shitbag ad networks, right? That were just built on scale, dotted line, no exclusivity, no real audience. I mean, it's laughable when someone says, oh, we're building a vertical ad network. Oh, who's your target audience? Women. Oh, half the planet, that's a vertical ad network? Come on. I mean, so to me, what we always did, we saw like down the middle of that was verticalized conversations. And I know a lot of this is going to sound duh, but I always believed, being a magazine publisher, is that we started the best conversations in the world. Brands started the best conversations. What all I did was see was bloggers with the next generation of writers who were able to build their own followings, right? And I thought is if we could, on an exclusive basis, reach out to the best voices, not the biggest, but the best voices in all of the key categories and verticals that were sections in the magazine, we could build a collective, not a network, but a collective of the best sites in the world. And look, I didn't foresee the massive acceleration that social networks would bring to both not only niche culture, but these voices that were creating the best and most differentiated content to the youth. So we created a platform based on best voices and then got rewarded by it, rewarded from the acceleration of social. And that really differentiated us in the biggest way possible, because we allowed these voices to stay as authentic and credible in their own little vertical. But then we were able to put all of that together because of the related nature and walk in the door with millions and millions of uniques and millions of page views in a very targeted way to the ad buyers who needed scale. So we just, I mean, again, that's not the most complicated thing in the world. It's just nobody else was really doing it.
Amazing idea for really building the scale that, you know, advertisers are always, you know, complaining they need. So you know, out of curiosity, I see a lot of, I see a lot of trends with the newsletter phenom going on right now with the bloggers from back in the day. What are your thoughts on that? Are newsletters the new blogs?
I don't think so. But look, my point there is there's no blanket answer, right? I mean, what this really is a reaction to the fact that the entire audience just continues to fragment and segment, whether it's platforms or whether it's topics, right? And both are fragmenting and segmenting on a compounding basis. So what you do is you have more and more, you know, ultra niche voices. Like, so it's like, not only am I a big fan of, you know, Bitcoin or blockchain, but I like this person's perspective on it. So it's a subset of a subset, pardon the substack, pun / nod. But, you know, I don't think that's for everybody. Not every writer, even, and it's not a measure of the quality, but not every writer can be a business person to develop their own verticalized audience. Some need the bigger platform from an exposure perspective. Some people aren't the best marketers for themselves and other things like that. I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all solution. I just think it's something else to look at for very verticalized audiences to allow them to go as deep as they want with around certain perspectives. I think it could be fantastic. I just don't think it's a solve. The same way apps were not going to be the solve for, you know, like paid apps were going to be the solve for magazines. Remember that when that was supposed to happen? And that didn't happen because that's not the way people behaved in mass. And that's the same way I believe that I don't think this is the solution an all, one size fits all black and white solution. I think it's going to be important for certain people. There will be big winners, but there'll be more losers than there'll be winners.
There's always so many different angles I want to go on, but something we really wanted. It was essential when we were chatting about putting this together, that it talking to you, listening to you, is like, publishers cannot be thinking of their audiences as audiences. They got to be thinking of them as communities, which you guys have really done all along. And can I ask, what is, how do we switch mindsets from audiences to communities?
I don't think the question is how. I think is if you can. Not every brand and every publisher has the ability. Like, are you concentrated enough? Are you ubiquitous? Like, do you have the best voices? Are you creating the most differentiated content, or is it more ubiquitous? Like, were you running an SEO play? Were you running, and by the way, not that there's anything wrong with any of those, but I think the biggest problem that I have with the minute that somebody comes out with a new trend is, oh, well, everybody should do it. Well, no, not every brand. They have to evaluate not just, is that the right thing for me and my consumer and my customer, but am I going to be able to do it in a differentiated way from a strategic and a tactical basis as well? And those are the questions that I think a lot of people don't do. They just run into things to like check a box and tell their board they did it, or have a PR statement that they participated, rather than really dive in and go, is this right for me? And if it is, how do I do it in a very differentiated and defendable way going forward? That's true not just for the shift from audience to communities, but anything that you want to think about. New platforms, new mediums, e-commerce, doesn't matter, same thing. Not everything is for everybody.
And it's really tough because we've got a lot of great minds in this audience, that real innovative people, but they're so tasked with their day-to-day stuff, that getting that time to really kind of think of how to innovate is tough.
Well,
but
let me bring. I completely disagree with that statement. I'm sorry. I'm not, because here's my point. I learned something pretty young, and when someone asks you a question, most people can't wait to just vomit an answer because they think they have it right and whatever. The biggest thing that everyone should be doing is going, why is this person asking me this question? It's the same thing from an audience perspective, is like, why are they searching for this? Are they searching for this because they're just curious, or how deep do they want to go? And that'll help inform the content that you actually develop. The same way, if you ask the question of why is this person asking, I might be able to give you a better answer that is even more targeted and specific to what you might be looking for if I understand that perspective. That's where everybody, it's not you don't have time for it. You have to find the time to question why on the front. How are you going to be differentiated so you can move forward aggressively and faster, because you actually have a strategy that informs your tactics. I don't think you can afford not to do that, personally.
Interesting.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Oh, no.
There's a big chasm between those.
I feel you 100%. I did want to ask though. You are pushing some really interesting products out there to advertisers, and I'm curious, how they're reacting to you, and what do they want to see in terms of performance. I feel like many of the people in the room, they're a little locked in, like, what do the buyers want? What do the buyers want? But you guys are saying, like, this is what we think you need.
Well, I mean, it's not quite that detached. I think
that was a little extreme. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, we're a brand and a house of brands, and we do develop products, and that product could be anything from new to world IP to sneakers to hot sauce to t-shirts, hoodies, and it could be it could be content, right? I mean, we build a lot of content with and for people. What we like to do is not just ask someone. I think the biggest mistake salespeople make or companies make is go, what are your KPIs? Well, before you go to the KPIs, we like to go, what are you trying to accomplish? And then let's build the KPIs together. If you jump right to the KPIs, you're already at the bottom of the funnel and you're commoditized because you're just trying to reverse engineer and check a box. If you go, you understand what someone is truly trying to accomplish. Like very often they have companies or agencies have KPIs because they're like, well, if I reach this many people and I convert at a 1.5%, and like that's how I'm going to get to this much sales, right? Or this much awareness, or the traditional formulas.
For sure.
My viewpoint is, when you jump right into that, if you don't understand why you're doing something from the beginning, you can't really build the right product. And again, that could be an ad product, it could be a real life product. And then you can actually help to define the proper KPIs to evaluate what that is. But if you're not partnering at that level on the true objectives, then really you're a back end, ubiquitous, undifferentiated commodity that they can just then negotiate exclusively on price. And to me, that's where the biggest mistake is made.
Yes, it's a real struggle right now for a lot of publishers. But I think, thank you so much for all you've talked about. I think there's been a lot of inspiring words here today. I hope this has given a lot of people in the audience some energy. I just kind of want to end off one more question on there. Complex is a good sized company now. You got great people working for you, but hey, you were once, a smaller publication with big dreams. There are a ton of smaller pubs around here in this audience. What do you think they should be focusing on right now?
Like I said, I do want to fits all strategy anymore because, but at the same time, on the flip side, there's never been more opportunities, right? I say one thing. I say that we've never seen a generation that is more brand conscious, yet less brand loyal at the same time. That creates. Well, look, I mean, it's very true. Very true as well. I mean, it's and by the way, brands in the most expansive way possible. Publishers, DTC, established, whatever. What that really does is it creates the biggest conundrum and challenge for the big established people and creates more opportunity every single day on all of these platforms in all of these different ways to reach your consumer. If you don't take advantage of that rather than be paralyzed by it, that's how to think about it in my book.
That is very good. That is some words of wisdom right there. And Rich, thank you so much for coming on today. I mean, yeah, I think we could talk for another like 3-4 hours, but we do have to dive into the programmatic weeds and whatnot, even though I think we could chat with you about that.
Well, and again, I apologize for being quite outspoken and the contrarian, but that's what worked for us. So it's very
we all need that very badly.